Hello and welcome. In this video, we are going to take another look at our P6 practice, and specifically, we are going to look at how to display the elements inside of a structure. Now, this particular P6 practice is probably going to be different than the one that you are currently working on. If anything, features in this project should be applicable to other projects. And this particular P6 practice is going to be looking at how to import the contents of a CSV file into an array of structures, ultimately displaying those structures and then doing some sort of primitive search on them. This video assumes a number of things that you've already been following along with the P6 instructions, and that you have a copy of the products.csv file, as well as having been successful in writing your import function. We are going to focus in on the display product. Now, why do we need this? Well, if you take a look at our products.csv file, it's not exactly in a very human-friendly form. As a matter of fact, you can see it's separated by both commas and by semicolons. And the idea is that we want to provide something more friendly to the user. Maybe have a nice little tabular form to display to the user the elements in each particular row. So let's go ahead and get started. You'll notice here the display product function accepts a single structure. As a matter of fact, it is passed as a constant. In other words, it cannot be manipulated inside of the function. And what we can do here is go to the implementation. And we'll keep this one pretty straightforward because most display functions are, in fact, pretty straightforward. About the only thing that it really technically needs to do is to check to make sure that each of the fields in the structure are, in fact, not null. Now, for this particular video, I'm going to keep the troubleshooting pretty short, or the input validation pretty short. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on just building this table. And so we'll start off with our printf, again, with a nice border for both the top and the bottom. This might end up becoming a little too noisy. We'll see, we'll modify as we need. And then you simply go through each of the fields in the structure, and we look at the data type. In this case, then for the source, it's going to be a %s. And we just access each of the fields by specifying the source and then dot whatever the field name is. So you can see here the source ID is a string, so we use a %s. We'll do the same thing with the name. Again, I'm just simply trying to keep it lined up here. So this will be, again, source.name. We'll do a printf with the type. And again, %s. New line. This will be source.type. And I think at this point, you can probably see the pattern, at least for the strings. We'll do the same thing now with the description. And we're just going to line up then our %s's again. And now we move on to the numeric values. And specifically, what we want to do is we want to look now at the price. And we'd like to add that $sign in there. And then what we'll do is we'll use a %.2f followed by a new line. And then source.price. And then lastly, we have our quantity. So, whoops, printf. And then for this, it'll be a %d, and source.quantity. Now, you may find yourself in a situation where you don't necessarily want to display all of the fields in a structure, so you don't necessarily have to feel compelled to. But the idea here is, in this case, the inventory is pretty straightforward, pretty clean. So this is probably the relevant information that the user would want. At this point, we can go ahead and build it. Our display function seems to be working okay, or at least builds correctly. Now what we want to do is we want to go up to our main, and in the earlier video, we simply created a for loop with a print statement inside that would print out the ID. Now, again, that's just meant for testing purposes. Now what we want to do is we want to leverage our display function to actually display all of the products to the user, essentially product by product. So the way we do this is we call our display product function, and we use the products array, but remember that we can't pass the entire array. And instead, what we're going to do is we're going to pass a specific structure in that array. And so essentially by calling it with product square brackets index, we are passing to our display function a singular structure. And that singular structure, known as our source, basically can then be picked apart or printed field by field. So let's go ahead and build this real quick. Again, we've just got all of this set up in our /ID for right now, search/ID. We're just testing things as we go along. And you can see here that if I run this, I will get each of my fields in its own row with each of the products separated by a nice table barrier or border, if you would. And again, you can play around with this however much you like to. You can see here that we managed to sneak in, for instance, the $ and the quantity, and then so on. So again, the general process is this display product function will display the contents of a singular structure. You will ultimately need to create a second function called display products, or have a for loop that will allow for you to loop through all of the elements in the array and then pass it to the display product function one product at a time. Hopefully you found this video useful. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, don't hesitate to reach out to me, and thank you for watching.